everyone, and welcome again to my channel. My name is MFA, and today I bring to you another video. My hair looks weird, but the style just didn't turn out the way I wanted it. But anyways, so I'm finally done reading A Time to Part by Amapoma and Padiki by Selassie Mensah. Well, I read this a long time ago, but for some reason I just haven't spoken about it, and then I read A Time to Part by Amapoma and I decided I need to talk about this. I didn't want to review any of these books, but I feel both books are similar because they both talk about the same thing. And since this predominant theme is a very sensitive issue here in Ghana, I just want to take the opportunity to talk about it. Let's get right to it. These two books talk about the same theme, which is sexual abuse, but it was tackled in two different ways. The key words here are sexual abuse and religion, and we see that in both books. In A Time to Part, Jasmine was sexually abused by someone very close to her, and she was not confident enough, courageous enough to talk about it. But in the present, someone very close to Jasmine is also passing through the same ordeal, and it's up to Jasmine to let fate take his due or do something about it. In Padiki was also abused by someone very close to her, and for her, this abuse has caused her so much bitterness and anger towards the abuser, and the abuser is now in town, and it's up to Padiki to take revenge on her abuser or let it go. This book also made use of religion, just like A Time to Part. But in A Time to Part, we see that even though religion was used here, the author gives us a sense of forgiveness. So forgiveness was really preached here because most of the characters here had been abused one way or the other, and it was up to them to forgive or not. In A Time to Part, Jasmine saved the little girl who was also passing through the same ordeal. She became very confident and spoke about what had happened to her in the past, and they allowed justice take its due while also letting religion take its due. In this part of the world, or in Ghana, when such issues happen, especially when it's something that has happened in the family setting, a relative probably has abused someone in the family, we would usually say, "Enyeshe fache onyankopon amfa ye boni anchen a anka wo he." All they are saying is, it's nothing, just forgive. If God hadn't forgiven us, where would we be? You know, so they use religion as some sort of a shield to cover these culprits, while the victim wallows in pain, in anguish, in shame, because society then sees you differently. And so for the author to tackle this very sensitive issue, taking into consideration the setting of this book, it happened here in Ghana, of course, in our society. She took all these into consideration and allowed justice take its course while letting religion also take its course. Padiki, on the other hand, used the route most Ghanaians would use, or most families would use, it's nothing, forgive, forget, you know. it took that route. And there was a whole sermon in this book talking about forgiveness, and where Padiki was present when this sermon was going on. And I felt like the sermon was a way to guilt trip Padiki, who in this case is the victim. And the fact that when Padiki was finally vocal, very confident to talk about what had happened to her, she was now treated as somewhat the culprit, when in fact she is the victim of this heinous crime. And the fact that the abuser here had said he's sorry, he's a changed person now, and Padiki has to forgive him, because when she went to church, the preacher gave a whole sermon on forgiveness. I understand the author is taking the forgiveness route because it says Padiki 70 times 7, which is a popular scripture in the Bible, where one of the disciples asked Jesus Christ how many times he's supposed to forgive his neighbor, and Jesus Christ said 70 times 7. So it's preaching about forgiveness, but the issue at hand is not something trivial or something petty. Sexual abuse is a very serious issue, and in both books, that is A Time to Part and Padiki, both victims were abused when they were children. So the abuse went into her university life, and when she was finally confident to talk about it, she did. And this person who was very close to her passed through the same ordeal, and it was up to her to do something about it. So she saved her. Although it had happened, she came out, she helped the girl. Justice took its due, religion took its due. Whereas in Padiki, the victim here was now seen as the culprit. Reading this book just got me so angry, so mad, that I wrote a whole thing here. There wasn't enough space, but I did write something here. I said, why would you downplay an issue of such magnitude? Sexual abuse victims are not guilty. Their anger or rage is from their ordeal. Religion or being religious doesn't pardon your error. This issue should have been tackled with all seriousness and dignity. The Nyamebeye era is far gone. People need to be accountable. Sorry doesn't redeem a person. Otherwise, laws wouldn't be made. So I just had a lot to say about it when I read it. And I've read other titles by this author, which I loved, but this one just didn't cut it for me. It got me thinking, it got me angry, because if we use this route, it becomes cyclical. The abuser comes to apologize, we forgive him, we forgive her, they move to a different place, it happens again, they ask for forgiveness, we do the same, and then it becomes cyclical. Already there's a lot of badness going on in the world. And if we can make things work, if we can get things to be done right, if we identify the culprits and justice takes its due, it's going to reduce a tiny bit of badness going on in the world. So yeah, for A Time to Part, Jasmine saved Selassie in that the culprit was identified, the culprit was dealt with by the law, and of course, religion also played its part. The victims decided to forgive their abusers, not because they are scared of the culprits or the abusers, but forgiveness, I think, is for yourself, to save you from a lot of anguish, a lot of pain, a lot of sorrow, a lot of psychological trauma. And I also think that society has a lot to do when it comes to victims coming out to talk about issues such as these. We should stop the stigmatization. We should stop the victim blaming, because when you do that, people cower and are not able to come out to talk about these, and the culprits then win. Because if a victim is not able to come out to talk about stuff like this, then how do we identify the culprits and further do what we need to do to save the victims? And this book is supposed to be a children's book. I don't know, but I think parents should do well to read books they buy for their children. If it's a storybook, take the time to read. I mean, children's books are usually very small. The pages are not a lot. You can read, even if it takes you 2 weeks to read it. Please do well to read it before you give it to your child to read. You learn a lot from reading. If you read chaff, your brain is filled with chaff. If you read good things, your brain is filled with good things. And it's easy for children to pick up, these things, because then they idolize these authors. And I'm not condemning the writing in any way. I think the writing was beautiful, but what was spoken about and how it was tackled. You do not have the time to read any book before giving it to your child, then please don't buy the books. If you read any of these books and you think otherwise, or you have a lot more to say about the writing, the themes discussed, how it was tackled, please leave them in the comment section, and please subscribe to my channel, give it a thumbs up, share to friends and family, and remember, I love you like a nerd loves books. Bye.